did I just get ripped off or did I actually get a bargain? Now, I'm not a big fan of Mossy Oak knives or Ozark knives from Walmart, but I actually found a Mossy Oak 9-inch knife with a gut hook on it, and I actually thought it was priced pretty good because I got it at $3.95. Now, this knife itself, just by itself, runs for $12.97 US dollars on the Walmart app, just the knife itself. Now, obviously, I think it has to do with the presentation of the knife because it's missing the second knife. Now, it looks like they had tried to lower it down first for like $11.98, something like that. That's what it shows here on the tag. I guess people weren't buying it and they had no choice and they had to bring it down all the way to $3.95, which is what I bought it for. But like always, this doesn't mean I actually got a bargain unless it actually works perfectly fine. So that's what we're going to try out today. Let's see how it performs and I'll let you guys know if it's worth buying or not, even if it's at a discounted price or at its regular $12.97. As mentioned, this is the 9-inch good hook knife from Mossy Oak. This is made of 3CR13 metal, and based on that material, it's not supposed to hold its sharpness so good, but we're going to put that to the test, obviously. And 3CR13 is actually good for corrosion resistance, so that's a plus for this material. But let's see just how strong it is. Now, one thing I actually like about this knife is that it's actually a full tang knife. I saw that at the bottom of the knife you have this hole like to put a lanyard onto it, so that's when I first thought that maybe it actually was a full tang. So then I decided to remove the scales and see what's inside, and to my surprise, it was a full tang. Now that's a big plus. I would have pictured it would have been like halfway or just the top, I mean maybe about an inch or something, but I was surprised to see that it was full tang. So that is actually a good thing. That's a really good thing. Now the scales, they're plastic and rubber, so maybe not the best material, but it's not that bad. I mean, obviously with time it's going to wear out. I'm sure that camouflage paint on it will start to fade at some point, obviously from regular wear and tear. But at that point you could obviously get some wood scales, make some on your own and swap those out. That's no big deal. So it's awesome that you get the knife, the gut hook, and the lanyard at the bottom, and that it's a full tang. So that's 4 great things about it already. So now let's go ahead and put it to the test to see how good it is. Now obviously the first test is just to do the paper test, which you can see here, it actually cuts the paper just fine. But then again, I mean, it's brand new out of the box or out of the package in this case, right? So it does a good job at cutting the paper, no problem. But now let's go ahead and put it to a real test here. Now we got a piece of pine lumber here. Let's go ahead and try to sharpen the tip of it. So you can see that it's actually able to chip off pieces of this pine without any problem. And pretty soon we'll be able to make a sharp point onto the tip of the pine wood. So it actually cuts pretty good. You're able to make some sort of spear, a pointy sharp tip without a problem with this knife. So if you're in the middle of the woods, you're trying to make some sort of spear, this knife gets it done without an issue. Now let's go ahead and try to cut some small branches here. No, nothing too big. This is about 1/2 inch, 1 inch at most. And you're actually able to see that it gets to cut this without a problem as well. So if you're going through an area in the woods or there, you know, in your ranch or farm where you got a lot of little small twigs or branches just sticking out, this knife actually cuts them out of the way pretty good. But again, it's brand new. We just got it out of the package. We have to really put it to the test. So the next test here is first, let's try to chop off a little bit of that pine wood. So now we're chopping away on this pine board just to see how well the sharpness of this knife holds. Obviously with a little bit of beating, we'll see if it holds its sharpness or if it begins to not just go dull, but also start to bend. So after a little bit of a chopping on this board, we're actually able to see that it's actually holding up pretty good. I'm surprised that it still feels somewhat sharp. It's still holding its sharpness, and I don't see any damage to the blade itself. Now we do the test where we drop the knife on tip onto a piece of board just to test the sharpness of tip, and as you can see, it lands right on the tip and it goes through to the point that the knife doesn't fall. It actually holds place. So that's a good thing because we're able to see that the tip of the knife actually is quite sharp, it's quite pointy, and it goes through that board without a problem. But now let's go ahead and really test out that tip. Let's beat that tip a little bit here on the 2x4, twist it to the sides, keep puncturing onto the 2x4, keep twisting it, and let's see how it holds after all that beating. and we're actually able to see that the tip is still straight. It's still pointy, it's still sharp, it's still pretty good. So not bad at all. Now let's really put that blade to the test. We're gonna try to cut a piece of wood here, a mesquite wood. We're gonna bang on it. Obviously, since this is a full tang knife, it's no problem. It should be able to hold up pretty good. So now let's go ahead and try to beat this piece of mesquite here to see if we could split it, and let's just hope that the knife is able to do it without any issue. Now I'm using a sledgehammer to actually push that knife down through the mesquite wood. And again, I'm surprised that it hasn't budged, it hasn't bent. And even with me beating with the sledgehammer on the top, it's not bending. Now, yes, I'm able to see a little bit of wear and tear on top of the knife, but nothing too serious. And once we actually finish going through this mesquite wood, I'm actually able to see that the knife is actually still pretty sharp. The blade is actually holding up pretty good. Now, if we try to bend the knife, we could see that it won't bend so easy either. That's another plus. So you can bend the knife, hammer it down with a sledgehammer, drop it on the tip, twist the tip, and it's still holding up pretty good. I will be honest, I'm actually quite surprised and impressed by the knife. Now, after that we put it to the test and you're seeing that it's actually holding up pretty good, the question now is, what would I rate this from a 1-10? And my answer would be an 8. Now, the only reason why I rate it at an 8 is just of the scales. I mean, plastic scales, I'm not a big fan of them. And the other reason is just because of the sheath. Now, the sheath itself is actually pretty good. The only thing I just don't like is the clip on it, on how it holds the knife place. I would have preferred that it had a clip through the top of the knife versus the side, because once you stick it in the sheath, you have to use both hands to clip it so it won't get out of the sheath. But other than that, this is actually a pretty good knife for the price, whether you get it for a bargain at $3.97, $3.95, or if you get it at regular price at $12, $13. It's actually not bad at all. It took the beating, it's still sharp. Here we put it one last time to the paper cutting test, and it's still cutting the paper pretty good. Now, you'll probably have to end up sharpening it every once in a while, depending on the usage. But if you use it for small things like the way I did it right now, you know, maybe chopping a few branches, maybe helping split some wood with it, it actually held up pretty good. So you won't necessarily need to be sharpening it every single time. If you use it on a daily basis, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, just depends. But I was not disappointed on how well it performed and that it's still able to hold some sharpness at the end of the day. So like I said, only 2 cons from this, just the plastic scales, I'm not a big fan, and the sheath, just the clip on it. But other than that, everything else is flawless. Everything else worked just fine. For the price, it actually worked great, over my expectations. Sharp, it's still sharp. The tip held out pretty good. It didn't bend. It's still straight. Even though I tried to bend it, it took a beating on the back of it, and it still held up pretty good after hammering it down with a sledgehammer. So overall, like I said, from a 1 to 10, I give it an 8. So if you can get this, go ahead and get it, because I think it's actually worth. But as always, let me know in the comment section, do you have this knife? And if you do, what do you rate it? From a 1 to 10, do you also give it an 8? Do you give it a 10? What do you give it? Have you had any bad experiences with it, or are you just super pleased with the product itself? Let me know in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like and subscribe to help out the channel. Thank you very much for your time. Have yourself a great day.